Well, today is the 15th annual Bell Let's Talk Day. This year, the campaign is focusing on the growing youth mental health crisis in Canada.
1.25 million young people need help in this country with increasing rates of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. Now, if you want to donate, you can text the word youth to 45678, and 100% of the proceeds is going to 6 youth mental health organizations.
And we're going to be joined by a social worker. Actually, we're joined right now by Janany Kumar, who is going to give us some advice to viewers who write in. This guidance not meant to replace any therapy or medical assistance, but to hopefully demonstrate that you're not alone in any struggle that you're facing and that help is available.
We want you to join the conversation for that reason. Send us a brief email with a concern you'd like to ask a therapist. And Janany will give you a few live TV answers this morning. Now at CP24.com, and we'll share some of those responses with you as well. This comes in from Keisha saying, Keisha, I have been worried about everything for years. My daughter has type 1 diabetes with anxiety and panic attacks. I constantly try to be strong, but now I'm worried I can't help my daughter. It's always, what if? How do I snap out of it?
It's a really good question, right? Because, I mean, so many people struggle with almost like chronic worrying, right? And constantly worrying about what's going on. Good morning, and thank you for coming in, by the way. We certainly appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And absolutely, it's such a common worry that a lot of us have. And we're so used to kind of catastrophizing and, you know, going to the what if, the worst possible scenarios. And as a mom myself, a mom of 3, I can really relate to this. And I think what's so important here, what I offer is, you know, can we take a moment to pause for a second and think about, you know, what if the best thing happened?
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes that can feel like, well, there's all of these things going on and things feel extremely overwhelming. But when we take that moment to pause, biologically in our brains, you know, it almost begins breaking some of those patterns that we have in our thoughts. And then the second thing that I think is so important for when these thoughts are, you know, more significant and really impacting our emotions, if the emotion's really high, I offer, you know, a really simple technique of using cold. So one of the easiest ways or the quickest ways to actually bring down our emotion in the moment is to shock our system with cold.
I've heard about this. It's an interesting technique, but it brings you into the moment, right?
Exactly, because when emotions are high, our bodies are heated. So we can shock our system with cold, whether that be, you know, can we grab something really cold to drink? Can we, if we're home, can we go to the freezer? I encourage clients all the time to, you know, can we place an ice pack, even a frozen pack of peas, whatever it is that you have in your freezer, either on the back of your neck or on your wrist, because that's going to immediately bring down some of this emotion. If you're at work, can we run our hands under extremely cold water? Works great for kids too. And then the last thing that I'll say for parents and for anyone who is really struggling with those what if questions, worst possible scenarios, it's coming from our fear. So journaling and actually allowing that to come through without resisting what we're actually fearful of can be helpful. And while doing that, also recognizing that you're engaging in some sort of self-care. So whether that be, you know, watching something funny, whether that be listening to music, whether it be meditating, finding something that is for you. That's going to regulate, and that's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
I think part of the subtext of what Cassia was asking too is that finding help can be so difficult for young people. And I think that was part of the sort of parental concern she had there as well, that there's this concern that, my gosh, my child needs some help. I can identify that. The child even knows it themselves, and sometimes they don't. But where, do you have any advice as to where to look for that help, which seems so hard to find in some cases?
So it can definitely be very hard to find it. And I think one of the programs that come to the top of my head that is doing phenomenal work is Sunnybrook's Family Navigation Team. And they specifically work with family and youth. And they, you know, you can give them a call, you can send an email, a navigator will connect with you. And they'll actually work with the family to help you find resources. And you don't have to pay for that. So at least we're getting things started. You're going to a professional who knows what sort of services you might need,
Yeah.
and help kind of gear you in the proper space as well. Because I think sometimes that's time consuming.
Yeah.
Where do I
Yeah.
go?
And
What's the
overwhelming,
right
right?
fit?
What to do,
Exactly.
yeah.
Certainly, that's all really good advice to consider. Let's see what Piper writes into our newsroom this morning. I am a full-time college student in Toronto who is working 2 jobs to try to make ends meet. I feel so stressed all the time. What advice do you have for me as I try to just make it through each day? And stress, weighing on a lot lot of people right now with
Financial
so
there,
many
yeah.
factors out there, with so much people are trying to cope with.
It's a hard time for sure. We know with the economic system and for students. So, I'm a professor, I teach at the University of Toronto, and I see this a lot. We see it a lot with our students, our international students. Students are working more than one job to try to make ends meet while also being in school full time.
It's like
Right?
2
So
full-time
much,
jobs, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Or 3 in some cases.
And they're working into late hours and then have classes the next morning. And it's a lot. It really is a lot for them. And I think my piece of advice here is very simple. As hard as it is, and I think with students, we're so focused on what can we do to move our career along, what's going to benefit us in the long run to get that job. But I encourage students to really focus on their self-care as well.
Yeah.
Right? We have to find moments to pause. We have to do the things we enjoy doing too.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it be going, even if it is going out with friends to a movie, building that time in, even if it feels like, well, I could be working on an assignment or I could be going to work, because that part of it makes it a little bit more lighter and, fills us up. And it's so important that we have things that fill us rather than things that always take
Self-care
out.
really is kind of mental health care indeed. Okay, we know you're going to stick around for part of the morning here, so let's continue this conversation. Just want to quickly say before we take a quick break here, if you do want to find some mental health resources for you or a loved one, you can also visit letstalk.bell.ca. And again, if you're in crisis, please go to the closest hospital or call 911 if you have any suicidal ideations. You can call or text 988 toll-free anytime. We are back with more on Bell Let's Talk Day right after this.
So today is the 15th annual Bell Let's Talk Day.
And this year, the campaign is focusing on the growing youth mental health crisis in Canada. Keep these figures in mind. 1.25 million young people need help in this country, with increasing rates of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. If you'd like to donate, you can donate $5 texting the word youth to 45678, and 100% of the proceeds go to 6 different youth mental health organizations.
Yeah, we're joined now by social worker Janany Jananthikumar, who is going to give us some more advice for viewers who are writing in. And by the way, this guidance is not meant to replace any therapy or medical advice. It's just to show and demonstrate that you're not alone in any struggle you may be facing, and that help is available. And that's so important that we stress that, that this is a really important open conversation. Let's bring in what Trisha writes into us this morning. My daughter is 14 and has been suffering with anxiety and depression since 2019. I've been trying to get her help and support she needs, but refuses to see or talk to a professional. What other support outlets or steps can I take to get her that support system she needs? And that is challenging if somebody may be struggling, but it's hard to encourage them to get that support.
Yeah, absolutely. And for your children, right? Again, we worry about our children so much. We want the best for them. And for youth, this is actually not uncommon. They usually don't really want to go see a mental health professional because of maybe what they think it's going to look like or what they've heard from their friends. And my piece of advice here is to really open up different support systems. So whether it be family, friends, organized sports are great ways to really get youth involved and connected, right? We know connection and feeling like you belong to something plays such a huge role in our mental health. The other thing is that there are a number of different mental health services that go beyond kind of the traditional, come into my office, let's talk about what's going on, right? So we have great text lines now. So Kids Helpline, it's very simple. I believe it's 686868. You just text to connect. So a youth might be more comfortable, maybe sending a text rather than showing up in an office. The other thing is that, certain organizations have walk-in clinics where, maybe if we try to plan for it, there's more anxiety buildup. The youth is worried about, should I go? Should I not go? What's going to happen? But if we can maybe just, in the heat of whatever's going on, if there's an anxiety buildup, hey, can we just, maybe go to a walk-in? And places like Strides, What's Up, Walk-In have mental health walk-in appointments. And they can also be family appointments too, which is great. Again, taking off the burden or the responsibility of the youth and the pressure.
You pick up on something so interesting, the idea of texting kids' cell phone, for example, because, quite honestly, we know children, kids, tweens, teens are very much connected to their phones, and sort of reaching them where they are rather than trying to force them to do something they're less comfortable with. That seems to be a great first step. And then maybe the process, the care, the treatment could evolve from there. Is that a pretty good step by step?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you hit on something so important. We really want to meet them with where they're at versus what we think they need, right? So even for this mom that would love, let's say, to get her daughter in therapy, maybe not realizing that sports can actually, or, going out and hanging out with friends or socializing, that can also be really therapeutic. Might not look the same, but if we have friends that we can talk to about what's going on, plays a huge role. And for this mom too, the fact is that her daughter's comfortable sharing what's going on. That also speaks volumes to having that supportive network. And the other thing that a lot of therapists are doing is all for youth and children is also, again, meeting them where they're at. Let's go on a walk. Let's, for youth who, let's say, like to play sports, I know therapists that will meet, their clients on a basketball court, right? So we're moving away.
Break down the barriers.
Exactly. And I love what you said there, Bill. We're really meeting them where they're at.
That's so encouraging to hear, that there are so many different supports, but ways to approach these really difficult conversations. Because to your point, you think, oh, therapy, it's like what we see on TV. You're lying down on a chair and you have to
Someone's
be very
got a
vulnerable.
notepad and whatever.
And they're scrutinizing what you're saying. It's not like that. It's
not
so different
like
now. I'm just so inspired and encouraged to hear about this. And we're so grateful that you've come in to talk about this with
thank you
us.
so much. Really appreciate this.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, this, of course, is Bell Let's Talk Day. And, of course, to find mental health resources for you or a loved one, you can also visit letstalk.bell.ca. And if you are in crisis, please go to the closest hospital or call 911 if you have any suicidal thoughts. You can always call or text 988. That's toll-free anytime.